The Trump administration's recent directive to pause work at the U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, has sparked significant controversy, drawing protests outside the agency's headquarters in Washington, D.C., and reigniting debates over the role of federal agencies in protecting consumers. This move is part of a broader agenda by the Trump administration, alongside influential figures like Elon Musk, to shrink and reshape federal government operations, aligning with promises to reduce regulatory oversight and cut government spending. To understand the implications of this action, it's essential to examine the CFPB's history, the rationale behind the work pause, the protests, and the broader political and economic context. The CFPB was established in 2011 under the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, a legislative response to the 2008 financial crisis and subprime mortgage lending scandal. The agency was designed to protect consumers from deceptive or abusive financial practices by overseeing major banks, mortgage lenders, credit card companies, and other financial institutions. Its primary responsibilities include enforcing consumer protection laws, investigating corporate wrongdoing, and issuing rules on issues like medical debt, bank fees, and overdraft charges. Since its inception, the CFPB has secured nearly $20 billion in financial relief for U.S. consumers, according to agency figures. Notable actions include capping overdraft fees, limiting credit card late fees, and addressing errors in medical debt reporting. For example, in 2023, following a CFPB report on medical debt complications, the three major credit reporting bureaus announced they would remove medical collections under $500 from consumers' credit reports, benefiting an estimated 22.8 million people. The agency has also taken enforcement actions against major financial institutions, such as suing Capital One for allegedly misleading consumers about high-interest savings accounts, resulting in significant consumer relief. Despite these achievements, the CFPB has been a target of criticism from conservatives and financial industry stakeholders since its creation. Critics argue that the agency is unaccountable, exceeds its legal authority, and imposes burdensome regulations on businesses. Its funding structure, which comes directly from the Federal Reserve rather than congressional appropriations, has been a particular point of contention, with opponents like former Subcommittee Chairman Patrick McHenry, RNC, arguing in 2013 that the CFPB director has little accountability to the administration and even less to Congress. His budget is secure. The Trump administration's actions and rationale. On February 9, 2025, Russell Vought, the newly appointed acting director of the CFPB and head of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, ordered the agency to halt nearly all operations. In an email to staff, Vought directed employees to stop work on proposed rules, suspend the effective dates of finalized but not yet effective rules, cease investigative work, and refrain from initiating new investigations. He also ordered the closure of the CFPB's Washington, D.C. headquarters for the week, instructing staff not to show up unless they received written permission for urgent work. This directive followed Vaught's announcement on social media that he had cut off the agency's next draw of unappropriated funding from the Federal Reserve, claiming it was not reasonably necessary to carry out its duties given the current fiscal environment. Vaught's actions align with the Trump administration's broader agenda to reduce the size and scope of the federal government, as outlined in initiatives like Project 25. A conservative policy blueprint for Trump's second term. Vought, a key architect of Project 25, has been a vocal advocate for dismantling agencies perceived as overreaching or unaccountable. The White House has accused the CFPB of functioning as a woke, weaponized arm of the bureaucracy that targets industries and individuals disfavored by elites, a sentiment echoed by Trump's most ardent supporters, including tech billionaire Elon Musk. Musk, who has been tapped by Trump to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, alongside Vivek Ramaswamy, has been particularly outspoken about the CFPB. His platform X, formerly Twitter, is seeking to enter the consumer financial marketplace, potentially subjecting it to CFPB regulation. Musk has vowed to delete the agency, posting CFPB RIP alongside a tombstone emoji on X, and his Doge team has reportedly gained administrative-level access to the CFPB's IT systems, raising concerns about conflicts of interest. Critics, including union officials and consumer advocates, have accused Musk of seeking to neutralize a regulator that could oversee his business ventures and competitors. The Trump administration's rationale for pausing CFPB work centers on claims of fiscal responsibility and reducing regulatory burdens. Vought has argued that the agency's current balance of $711.6 million is excessive, and the White House has emphasized ending what it calls the weaponization of federal agencies. However, these actions have drawn sharp criticism from Democrats, consumer advocates, and agency staff, who argue that they undermine the CFPB's mission and leave consumers vulnerable to financial misconduct. The work pause prompted immediate protests outside the CFPB's headquarters on February 10, 2025, with demonstrators including Senator Elizabeth Warren, DMA, who helped create the agency, denouncing the administration's actions as illegal and unconstitutional. Warren, a longtime advocate for consumer protections, has been vocal in her opposition, stating, "We're not going to stand by while Trump and his billionaire buddies dismantle protections for American consumers. This move is unlawful, and we will challenge it every step of the way." Protesters rallied against the shutdown, highlighting the CFPB's role in protecting consumers from financial predators, and arguing that the pause risks leaving nearly $18 trillion consumer debt with less supervision or regulation. The union representing CFPB staff has also filed lawsuits against Vought, challenging his authority to order the work pause and accusing him of attempting to thwart Congress's decision to create the agency. Legal experts have questioned the legality of Vaught's actions, noting that the CFPB is an independent agency created by Congress, and its operations cannot be unilaterally suspended without legislative approval. Nadine Chabrier, counsel at the Center for Responsible Lending, called the developments deeply troubling, arguing that they undermine the CFPB's mission to protect consumers from financial misconduct. These protests and legal challenges echo similar responses to other Trump administration actions, such as the attempted closure of the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, which was temporarily blocked by a federal judge. The CFPB's situation is seen as part of a broader pattern of aggressive moves to remake the federal government, drawing comparisons to the administration's efforts to slash funding for other agencies and programs. The CFPB work pause is a microcosm of the Trump administration's broader agenda to shrink and reshape federal government operations, aligning with promises made during the 2024 presidential campaign. Trump's campaign emphasized lowering costs for working-class families and reducing government regulation. But critics argue that actions like the CFPB shutdown contradict these populist promises. Dennis Kelleher, head of Better Markets, an advocacy group for stricter financial oversight, accused Trump of throwing his own voters to the financial wolves, noting that the CFPB has been an effective cop on the finance beat, standing side by side with Americans battling financial predators. The administration's efforts are supported by influential figures like Musk and Vought, who have been tasked with implementing cost-cutting measures through DOGE and Project 2025. Project 2025 in particular recommends abolishing the CFPB, calling it utterly unaccountable. However, experts have raised concerns about conflicts of interest, especially given Musk's business interests and his access to CFPB systems. A CFPB lawyer drew a parallel to food safety, stating, "The USDA secretary doesn't need to pause meat inspections when they take office," highlighting the unprecedented nature of the work pause. The Trump administration's moves have also drawn comparisons to its first term, during which efforts were made to weaken the CFPB through deregulatory actions. Former CFPB Director Rohit Chopra, appointed by President Joe Biden, worked to undo these measures, clashing with big banks over rules to limit fees and address medical debt. Chopra was fired by Trump on February 1st, 2025 as part of a broader purge of Biden administration holdovers, further fueling tensions over the agency's future. The CFPB work pause has significant implications for consumer protection, financial regulation, and the broader political landscape. Consumer advocates warn that suspending the agency's operations could hurt Americans by reducing oversight of financial institutions, potentially leading to increased predatory practices. The agency's recent actions, such as capping overdraft fees and addressing medical debt, are now on hold, leaving consumers vulnerable to financial losses. Adam Rust, Director of Financial Services at the Consumer Federation of America, previously noted that shutting down the CFPB would have real ramifications for people's pocketbooks. Legally, the administration's actions face challenges, with lawsuits and protests likely to intensify. The CFPB's status as a creation of Congress means that formally eliminating it would require legislative action, which is unlikely given the current divided Congress. However, the head of the agency has discretion over enforcement actions, and Vought's directives could effectively neutralize the CFPB's operations in the short term. Legal experts argue that these moves may be unlawful, and courts could intervene, as seen with the USAID case.
Politically, the CFPB shutdown has become a flashpoint in the ongoing debate over government regulation and consumer protection. Democrats, led by figures like Warren, have vowed to fight back, framing the issue as a battle between corporate interests and working-class Americans. Republicans, on the other hand, see the CFPB as a symbol of government overreach, with some, like McHenry, long advocating for its reform or elimination. The involvement of figures like Musk adds another layer of complexity, with critics accusing the administration of prioritizing billionaire interests over consumer welfare. Looking ahead, the future of the CFPB remains uncertain. The agency could face further attempts to weaken or dismantle it, especially if the Trump administration continues its aggressive push to reshape federal operations. However, legal challenges, public protests, and political opposition may limit the extent of these changes. The broader implications for consumer protection, financial regulation, and government accountability will likely be debated in the coming months, with significant consequences for Americans' financial well-being. This overview provides a detailed analysis of the CFPB work, pause, protests, and broader context, drawing on recent reports and critical examination of the establishment narrative. If you'd like to expand on specific aspects, such as the legal challenges, economic impacts, or political ramifications, I can provide additional information or assist with drafting sections for a longer script. Let me know how you'd like to proceed.